Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about Stephen King's 1998 novel Bag of Bones. We'll show you what to look for when trying to identify the first US and first UK trade hardcover editions, as well as provide a little historical context on the novel and thoughts on the work itself. The first US trade edition was released by Scribner. It was Stephen King's first novel to be released by Scribner after nearly 20 years at Viking. Inside the front jacket, look for a price of $28. And on the copyright page, there's a handy dandy number line that includes the number 1. Underneath the jacket, look for this kind of mustardy brown color boards with white on the spine. One of the things that was kind of a drag to me when Stephen King switched to Scribner, although I understand his professional motivations for wanting to do so, was that it ended the era of the quartered cloth binding. So the Viking books have this covering over the spine in actual real cloth, and then the transition to Scribner, this is textured. I think it's supposed to feel like cloth, but this is definitely paper. And all the Scribner books since have been that paper on paper. And to me, it just feels, it looks and feels a little bit cheaper. The cloth on the binding of the Vikings just looks and feels a little bit more deluxe. It's just a different way of doing things, and that's just my totally subjective opinion. But anyway, on the spine, white with gold lettering imprinted. It looks pretty sharp. I like the color scheme of this book. But there is the first US trade hardcover of Bag of Bones.
Hey everybody, so today we're taking a look at the first UK edition of Bag of Bones. The book was published by Hodder and Stoughton, King's British publisher, and it was 1998, I believe. Yep, 1998. To see if your copy is a first printing, you're looking for a printed price of $16.99 UK on the flap. And the copyright page will have a number line that goes all the way to 1, indicating a first printing. Other than that, I don't really have too much to say about this other than the jacket artwork is okay. Nothing special. I don't know. I like the book, but I wish I had more to say about this particular edition, but it's just a typical trade edition of a book. So there you have the UK first edition of Bag of Bones.
So as I mentioned earlier, Bag of Bones was Stephen King's first novel to be published by Scribner after about 18 years with Viking. And prior, so in the mid to late 90s, Stephen King was commanding a $15 million advance per book from Viking. And when his contract expired, he demanded a larger advance for his next book, as well as 25%-ish of profit sharing, the gross sales amount. So gross sales might actually be different than profit sharing, but 26% of the gross Stephen King wanted, in addition to like $17 to $18 million advance. And Viking dug their heels in, and they refused. And Stephen King had been wanting to move to a more literary and prestigious publishing house for a while, and eventually, so he may have been bluffing or forcing Viking's hand by demanding all that money, but eventually he accepted a $2 million advance from Simon & Schuster to publish with their Scribner imprint, as well as 50% of the gross sales, and I have no idea what that actually equals in real dollars in terms of how much money Stephen King made from Bag of Bones. But he ended up at a new publishing house where he wanted to go. The first print run, the first printing of Bag of Bones was 1.4 million copies. So massive, massive amount of books. I showed the copyright page that shows the number line that has a number 1. It is not hard to find a first trade edition of Bag of Bones. It is now, let's see, 1998. It is, 25 years old. It's hard to believe, but 25 years old, so it can be hard to find one in really nice shape, but it's not hard to find Bag of Bones. It had a massive print run. But anyway, bit of a contentious history to Bag of Bones and Stephen King's transition from Viking to Scribner, where he has been ever since. I read Bag of Bones years ago, and I knew that Stephen King had kind of had some egg on his face from the publicity, all the publicity about how much money he was demanding from Viking, and ended up like the details of his contracts and stuff in the news publicly disclosed, and he ended up looking not very good. I remember when all of this happened that he came across as seeming greedy, and I don't think that was his intention, but he made the leap to Scribner, settled for less money up front, although in the end he may have actually made more. But I know that he was very self-conscious that his first book at this new, more prestigious publishing house be a really, really solid work. And I think that's what Bag of Bones is. It is, in some ways, classic Stephen King, but in other ways, it is a more mature Stephen King. It certainly, so just off the top of my head, I can't remember a Stephen King novel that includes more sexual content, which was kind of eye-opening to me when I first read the novel. I think it's handled well. There's a lot of, like passion and longing and lust and emotion in the book, which I also thought was really interesting and well done and welcome. I also enjoy the fact that Bag of Bones is a Derry story, so another story set in Stephen King's, well, maybe not his most famous fictional town, that would probably be Castle Rock, but Derry is certainly a close second, and I always appreciate a good Derry story. And yet another story about a writer, in this case, a writer, a famous, popular writer, sort of autobiographical there, who is suffering from writer's block, and his time that he spends secluded in the woods at a cabin trying to reignite his mojo. Stephen King has a lot to say in Bag of Bones about how mysterious a force the creative fire really is. I found all of these aspects of Bag of Bones to be very interesting and very, very enjoyable. And on the back cover, the tagline is "A Haunted Love Story." And in fact, I can't think of a better way to describe Bag of Bones than a haunted love story. It owes a lot to Daphne du Maurier, who is quoted, and shout out, Stephen King owes a lot to du Maurier in Bag of Bones, but he owns that. He freely admits to that right up front. So it's hard to fault him for all of the homages and tributes. It also includes one of the most, involving relationships, romantic relationships in a Stephen King novel, and has quite a few. So the relationship is involving. In spite of itself, it has the potential to be kind of icky and creepy, but it is engaging, and it does include quite a few twists and turns along the way that have the ability to engage the senses and pull at the heartstrings in unexpected ways. I will just say that. But Bag of Bones is thoroughly enjoyable Stephen King. It was a self-conscious leap to his new publisher and a new level of maturity in trying to reach a broader audience, to be taken seriously by a more literary crowd. And in the end, Stephen King is Stephen King. So he's always been kind of literary. He's always been kind of popular. He's a little bit country. He's a little bit rock and roll. He's a little bit easy listening, and he's a little bit death metal. But he's still Stephen King. So whatever the hell I just said, whatever the hell it means, I don't even know. I'm rambling now. This video is getting pretentious and ridiculous. So I will just call it a day on this one. But anyway, Bag of Bones, well worth picking up if you haven't. I would recommend it as a great place for someone to start if they are interested in ghost stories and they don't know if they would like Stephen King. They're a little curious, but they're also a little nervous because they don't like horror. Bag of Bones would be a great place to start. But anyway, until next time, take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you later. Bye.